Think of an American cruiser for a moment. Could look like this, huge, a massive V-twin. But there is another way, a bit more compact, no big V-twin. So I'm asking myself, could this actually be better for everyday use? And with that, a warm welcome to 1000 PSTV and the LiveWire S2 Mulholland. Mulholland Drive, a famous road in California. Can't offer you that here. I'm up on the Hohe Wand, and to be honest, I think it's just as beautiful. A perfect spot to show you this bike, the S2 Mulholland. S2, the name might ring a bell, because there are already a few bikes from LiveWire based on this platform. First, the S2 Del Mar, a naked bike with 19-inch tires. Then there's the Alpinista, sounds like a big touring machine, but in reality it's just a Del Mar with 17-inch tires. And now we've got this, the Mulholland, the performance cruiser, as LiveWire calls it. And like I said, they all share the same platform. And that platform really comes down to this part right here, the battery and electric motor combined in this drive unit. The battery, with a capacity of 10.5 kilowatt hours, is linked to the electric motor, and together they actually form the frame of the bike. So that means LiveWire can quite easily take this concept and build different bikes from it. Like you see here with this cruiser, the Mulholland. As you'd expect from an electric, the performance figures are pretty impressive. We're talking 84 horsepower and 263 Newton meters of torque. And of course that torque is available instantly for some, but how that actually feels on the road we'll get to in a moment. Let's talk a bit more about this cruiser concept. The design clearly takes some inspiration from the combustion engine mother brand Harley-Davidson. We've got a very compact cruiser here. The rear end reminds me a bit of the Sportster, and the front headlight unit also looks quite familiar, very Harley-esque. Naturally, this concept also means the ergonomics are different on the Mulholland. In front of me, I've got a handlebar in the seats of Rise style. So it's mounted quite high, but it's also fairly narrow. The knee position, however, hasn't changed compared to the Del Mar. So for me, sitting in the saddle, it doesn't really feel like a proper cruiser, mainly because of that knee position. I would have liked the foot pegs to be set further forward. And this high handlebar and the overall ergonomics also mean that the Mulholland sort of encourages you to ride in a more relaxed way. This high bar really isolates me from the road. It's fitted with quality Dunlop tires, no question there, but even so, with such a narrow and high-mounted handlebar, I don't get any feedback from the front wheel. So, if LiveWire was aiming to fully embrace the cruiser idea, they've absolutely nailed it. Because I never really get that confidence, that trust in the bike to really push it hard, simply because I can't feel what the front end is doing. Other than that, while I'm sitting here on the bike, in front of me are the familiar control elements. On the right-hand side, you've got all the multimedia controls, plus traction control, which feels a bit oddly placed, to be honest. Over on the left, you've got the main bike functions. That's where you can switch on the cruise control and toggle through the riding modes. There are several: Sport, Road, Eco, Rain, and one user-defined mode. You can flip through them on the left side, and I have to say those modes do make a real difference in everyday riding. Because they don't just affect throttle response and power delivery. What's even more important on an electric bike is the regeneration. And that plays a key role. In terms of range, LiveWire is now right up there. But to be fair, I can't give you a proper figure. With a bike like this, it really depends on how you ride. But I'd say realistically, you're looking at somewhere between 110 and 130 kilometers. We'll talk more about charging later on. As for the ride itself, out here on twisty country roads, the LiveWire is genuinely impressive once you get used to that slightly disconnected feeling. Because of course, the electric motor pulls from the very first moment. Those 263 Newton meters really are thrilling. I do think it's a bit of a shame the seat doesn't have a more pronounced rear hump. I'd appreciate a bit more support so I don't have to hold onto the handlebar so tightly. But the acceleration is seriously fun. It goes all the way up to 160 kilometers per hour, and that's where it's electronically limited. LiveWire doesn't let it go any further. The suspension setup is on the firmer side. Both the fork and the shock are adjustable, but the base setting is definitely on the sporty side. The brakes though give nice feedback, nothing to complain about there. Especially when you're riding in the kind of setting this bike was really made for, the city. In eco mode I was really impressed. You barely need to touch the brakes at all because the regeneration is so strong, even with a fully charged battery, that you can almost ride it without ever braking. So before I hop back on and head into the city, which is really where the LiveWire feels most at home, let's quickly sum up the impressions from riding out here on the country roads. You definitely feel a bit disconnected from the road. It's a bike that invites you to cruise, and that's something the Mulholland does really well. It gives you a relaxed, laid-back feeling. And of course, riding up a beautiful mountain road like this, without the roar of an engine, I don't have to feel guilty about making noise because it's all completely silent. Sure, you've always got to keep the range in mind, but overall, the Mulholland really encourages you to take it easy and enjoy the scenery. And then, when the battery starts running low at the end of the day, you simply cruise back down into the city. That's what I'm about to do. And once we're there, we'll talk about charging and what the whole thing costs. Just like the day is coming to an end, so too is the LiveWire's battery. As I mentioned earlier, range is a tricky topic. It really depends on how you ride. For me today, I managed around 140 kilometers, but now I'm back in the city where I think this bike truly belongs. Let me quickly share a few impressions I've gathered over the past few days. That narrow handlebar I mentioned earlier, the one that felt so disconnected from the road out in the mountains, really shines here in a good way. The entire LiveWire is built very slim, which means it's incredibly easy to weave through traffic in the city. And the biggest advantage of an electric motorcycle, the drive unit doesn't give off any heat. So even in the height of summer, you can ride through the city, squeeze between cars and not get absolutely roasted. That's a real plus with these electric bikes. But as we've said, eventually you do have to charge it. So how does that work on the LiveWire? You've got a Type 2 charging port, the same one you'd find on a standard wallbox, and there are two ways to charge it. First, level 1, that's using the supply charging cable with a regular household socket. So that's single phase power. Charging from 20 to 80% takes around 2.3 hours. The second option is level 2 charging, like with a wallbox. Again, it uses single phase power. In this case, the 20 to 80% charge takes just 78 minutes. But if you've already got a wallbox at home, make sure you can adjust its settings. Most wallboxes run at 11 kilowatts, and that's too much for the LiveWire. We tried it ourselves at the office with our own wallbox. That's the charger we use for our Teslas and the other electric cars at the office. But unfortunately, the LiveWire throws up an error because the current is simply too high. So if you want to charge using a wallbox, make sure it can be adjusted to single phase output. Then you'll be able to charge it more quickly. True fast charging using DC current isn't supported on the LiveWire S2, and that goes for the whole S2 family. Only the LiveWire 1 is capable of that. So I hope that gives you a clear idea of how charging works on the LiveWire. And even if you're using a regular household plug, just leave it overnight and it'll be fully charged by morning. Not bad, really. And on top of that, if you ride smart like I did today, you can enjoy a lovely day out on country roads, explore a bit and still make it home with some battery left. Let's wrap up the video with one last key point: price and availability. The LiveWire S2 Mulholland is already available, but it depends where you live. For example, in Austria, there's no official distribution for LiveWire models yet. In Germany, you can count the number of dealers on two hands, so it's still a brand in its early stages over there. And if you do want one in Germany, the price is around 19,400 euro. That's definitely on the higher end for a motorcycle like this. Especially when you look across at Harley, their combustion engine sibling models start at around 14,000 euro for the water-cooled ones. A proper air-cooled model will set you back about 17,000. So if you're looking to get an electric Harley, you've got to be the right kind of rider, someone who consciously chooses it, maybe already has a Harley in the garage and wants something electric for commuting. So yes, you really have to be an electric pioneer, someone willing to spend a fair bit of money on something like this. So the big question, is this actually better for everyday use than a traditional combustion engine cruiser? I'd say yes, especially when I compare it to the petrol-powered cruiser we've got at the office, the one you saw at the start of the video. This is a bike I clearly see in an urban setting, also whether you're commuting in from outside the city or just riding around town. And maybe after work or on the weekend, heading out for a little pleasure ride. The key word here is pleasure. Because of course, if you're looking to properly tear it up, this isn't the bike for that. You've neither got the feel for it, nor the range to do a full weekend tour. This is more about taking a short ride into the countryside, grabbing a coffee, maybe a nice schnitzel, and then heading back home. I hope I've managed to give you a good look at the LiveWire S2 Mulholland. Hopefully you took something useful from this video. I'd love to hear what you think about the whole electric motorcycle topic and electric Harleys in particular. Let us know down in the comments, and don't forget to give a thumbs up to Cookie behind the camera, to me and to the LiveWire. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye for now.